Hey, well, we're going to get started here in a couple of minutes. I just wanted to check things and make sure that this is working. And it is. And let me add the slides, and then let me take a look. I'm sort of checking YouTube as I look at this. Yep, the slides are working. Okay, so I'm going to close out YouTube because it says that saves bandwidth for me. But I'm gonna take this out and get ready. Yeah, so we're gonna start in 2 minutes, right at 10 o'clock. But I'm in here a little bit early. I'm super excited to do this. This is my first live streaming webinar, and so I hope you enjoy it. And Happy New Year. And I'll probably say that again when I start here. But this has been, it took me a while. I canceled it last week because I just didn't have the technical things together to do it live streaming to YouTube and have my computer all integrated with slide decks and all that kind of stuff for in a broadcasting platform. But I think I got it together now, and I'm really looking forward to this. So, and if you have any questions, comments, things like that, just put them in the comments. You know, I, I, I don't know how I may not see them right away or something like that because I may be distracted by talking or something. But I promise you, I'm going to answer every one of them, and unless there are too many. And let's see, we have got it's 9:59, and so. Okay, welcome and happy New Year. It's time to start. And this is my first live webinar of the year. It's my first live webinar ever. So I'm very excited about doing this and trying it. And just like this topic today, right, on goals and setting goals and intentional action. That was one of my intentional actions for this year, is to start doing live streaming webinars and then have them archived in the MBA ASA community so everybody can see them afterwards, and I can reach out to everybody in the lifetime. Sometimes, the synchronous part, being live, is kind of a challenge because not everybody can make it at a specific time. And I goofed last week. I had scheduled it for last week, I think Thursday or something, but I just wasn't ready technically. And so reschedule it today sort of very quickly. And so you may um, not have gotten the message and stuff, but you can watch it after, anytime, because it's going to be archived and it'll be on the community. I think it'll be on YouTube too. It'll be everywhere. So, really a pleasure to kick off this year. I'm going to do one webinar every month in this format, and they're going to follow each month in the MBA ASAP community. We have a challenge and a topic that we cover, and these webinars will sort of fit into that structure. So, and I'll do them. The plan is I'll do them at the beginning of the month sometime, the 3rd to the 6th, something in there maybe, and by the 10th certainly, and then have a Ask Me Anything one later on in the month. So as people are, as you're doing all those kind of different things, you'll be able to then ask me questions about it or about anything else, right? Ask me anything. So let's kick it off here, and I'm going to start with this slide. And it's basically, we're talking about goal setting and intentional action. And intentional is a big word there, but action, a bias towards action in everything we do. Instead of ruminating about things all the time and thinking about them, get started, get some feedback, and then iterate and course correct as you go. That's kind of the idea I'm talking about here. And we're gonna start these talking about why resolutions fail. Everybody makes New Year's resolutions. That's a big time to make them. And by February 1st, roughly 80% of the resolutions have failed. A lot of gyms, gym memberships really count on that. They sign you up at the beginning of the year when you're really ready to go, and they sign you up for the year. And then they know that by the beginning of February, most of the people are going to drop off. So the gym isn't going to be overly crowded. So they can sign up lots of people in January. And you'll go to the gym, the first couple of weeks in January, and be like, oh my gosh, where did all these people come from? And just wait a couple of weeks, they'll start to drop off. But we don't want to be that kind of person. We want to actually stay with our resolutions. So, and then we're going to talk about why clarity matters more than willpower. Systems, habits. That's the kind of thing we want to rely on, not willpower. There's also a great book. I highly recommend it. I'm sure a lot of you have read it. Is James Clear's Atomic Habits. Breaking habits into small bits and really developing systems and habits that allow us to do things every day. Because consistency is what matters, right? Long-term consistency always beats short-term, intensity. So let's talk about what we're going to get in today's session. You know, we're going to talk about simple, repeatable goal systems, a visualization method that works, how to align your identity with the actions that you do, how to remove friction in your systems, and start to think about planning your 2026 action plan. So this whole topic here is a lot of it's based on thoughts I've put together into this book of mine, my personal development book, and simple path to self-actualization. That's what we're all trying to do, right? Is become more of ourselves, more what we can be. And as we move along these paths, it reveals more and more of our truth to ourselves. So that's that. This book, this is where a lot of this stuff comes from that I'm talking in here. So why does goal setting matter? Well, if you don't, like they say, if you don't know where you're going, you may not get there. And drift is the default, right? We just drift around, wondering what to do and all. And if you have a clear North Star that you are going to go for, then you can reverse engineer and figure out what are the small steps that are going to get me there and start to develop those systems and habits that allow us to really make that happen. And then that feels just so good because instead of just drifting around and feeling, oh, I'm not getting anything done, at the end of the year, you look back, oh, I really didn't, accomplish what I wanted to. First, you have to define really what you want to accomplish. And that's where clarity comes in, being able to write down what you really want and what you want to and what's achievable, and make them audacious goals. Audacious goals are great because then even if you fall a little bit short of it, you've made a lot of progress. So make them big, really go for what you want to be, who you want to be. I think that's and then it makes life fun, right? So small directional shifts, massive outcomes. Think about a boat. I got this from Tony Robbins, but and it always stuck with me. Think about you're sailing across the Pacific, and you're sailing in a boat and a ship, and if you leave from say Port of Los Angeles and you go 1 degree of compass different, by the time you cross the Pacific, that's a long way, right? Those paths are going to diverge, and you're going to end up that 1 degree might end up in Hong Kong or Australia, and so making small, it seems like a small step, but incrementally over time, that really builds up. So these little inflection points that we develop are really going to help us. And you can't change the destination overnight, but you can change the direction. And really, accomplishments are a lagging indicator, right? Once you make that commitment and change, that's a change of identity. You can say, I am this person now, even if it takes you a while to get there, you're going in that direction, and that can feel mighty, mighty, mighty great. So what I'd like to do is see if you could share something that one thing you'd like to improve in your life this year. I think that would be a great thing to talk about. Just one thing. What brought you here? What's one thing that you'd really like to change in your life? And just think about that for a bit, huh? And why do people feel stuck? Why do we feel stuck? Well, you haven't clarified what you truly want. So again, if you don't have that idea, and plus your subconscious, when you clarify something and commit and say, that's what I want to do, your subconscious starts to percolate and work on that and starts to fill you and send you ideas of how to get there. And you have to have goals that they have goals that aren't tied to their identity. Like I said, if you want to say write a book this year, then you're going to sit down and say, well, I want to write a book this year. How am I going to do it? Well, say a book is about well, let's just round it to 60,000 words. Well, then if you sit down and write 1,000 words a day, which is definitely doable, right? You could even break that into two 500-word sessions, and you write 1,000 words a day in 60 days, right? You're going to have 60,000 words. And then you can polish, that's 2 months. Then you can polish those words and make them right exactly the way you want them. And then publish it on Kindle Direct Publishing through Amazon. That's how I do it. And then as you polish and refine the manuscript, you just upload the new manuscript and it's there. So you can publish it relatively quickly and see what type of feedback you get. See if it's a topic that people are interested in. And then you can also, depending on the feedback you get, refine it more and more. So, not having goals or tentative identity and mental noise drains momentum. That's really a key, right? And so, what are some mental noise things? Well, television. I have to say that it's about 30 years ago, 25 years ago, I realized that I was watching television and that was time that was squandered for me. When I was done, nothing, I had not learned or accomplished anything. So I got rid of my TV. I got rid of cable and all those kind of things. And so no sporting events, no sitcoms, all that kind of stuff. And then I started reading and writing, and I've just published my 70th book. And I couldn't have done it if I kept a TV habit going. A lot of people watch 4 hours of TV a day. Well, think about that. If you stop watching TV, that's 4 hours that you can put to work uh, for your accomplishments. And I know a lot of people, it's really easy to say, after a day of work, I'm just burnt out. I just want to sit down and watch something brainless and be entertained. Well, that's fine, but it's not going to get you anywhere. Social media, same thing. That's a newer version of the same thing. Scrolling and scrolling TikTok or Facebook Reels or whatever it is. And another thing, that is really, tough for us is drinking alcohol and smoking pot, and things like that. Now, marijuana is legal in a lot of states in U.S. now, and that's just great, and I think it should be. But I also think you have the choice not to do it. Just because it's legal doesn't mean it's good for you, even for the health benefits. Never mind, but just for the time that gets squandered away with distractions. And the same thing. Now we're in January, right? And it's you hear all this noise about dry January. Like, oh, make it through January without drinking any alcohol, and you'll feel so much better, and you'll have more clarity, and your liver will be great. Well, why not just stop alcohol altogether? There's none that is good for us. They've made a lot of studies now. It's like used to be, a couple of glasses of red wine or something are beneficial to the heart. Now they're saying no. It's come on, that's just wishful thinking. So those are the kind of things, and there's lots of others too. But those are some things to be honest with ourselves. Where are we squandering our time, and where can we capture it back? Um, So the power of visualization, creative visualization. Athletes do this all the time. When say a downhill skier, they will visualize that path, how they're going to run it, everything, how they're going to make a perfect run. And then when you have visualized it, if you can see it, you can be it, right? Kind of thing. So align with your internal compass. Future self thinking guides present action. Think about be kind to your future self. What would your 80-year-old self say to you? What advice would it give you now? And take that advice to heart. Put yourself in that position. Like, you know, will your 80-year-old self say, you know what, you should have watched a few more episodes of that sitcom, or would say, you know what, you always wanted to learn how to play the guitar and you never did, but you do it now. Start learning how to play a musical instrument. Start learning a foreign language. All kinds of things that we can do that we want to do, and we just get tied up in things where we just don't feel like we have the time to make those efforts. And identity leads to behavior. Instead of saying, I want to be a writer, sit down and start writing a couple days, and then you can say, I'm a writer. That kind of thing. You want to learn how to play the piano. Sit down, start playing, and say, I'm a piano player. Even if you're, just starting out to a degree, your identity really matters, because that's how your behavior is going to go. So why do resolutions fail, right? Like we're talking about. They rely on discipline, not design, and discipline will always erode. You really have to have design. You have to have systems, and you have to have habits in place. Systems, are greater than motivation every time. It's not that we have to look for motivation or inspiration and then we start the action. It's when we sit down and focus and start doing something, then suddenly through that process, we become motivated and engaged, and we get inspiration. So it's reverse from what a lot of us think. We're sitting there, I just don't feel inspired for it. I just don't feel like it. Start doing it. If it's a time to work out, start working out. 5 minutes in, you start to get you get all you start to get motivated. You get warmed up, and then you really want to do it for everything. In identity alignment, again, we talked about, beats willpower. We don't want to rely on willpower and discipline. So why most goals don't stick, and this is a really good section here, I think. It's not about discipline. We assume self improvement requires suffering. It doesn't. We blame failure on a lack of willpower. One thing, if you're trying to diet or something, don't have a bunch of snacks in the house. Take them away, so you don't have to rely on willpower to stay away from the cookies. You just don't have the cookies around. And so that preempts trying to rely on discipline and willpower. And most people, we're not lazy, and then we blame ourselves we're lazy, or look at somebody and say they're lazy. We have a broken model of motivation, and that's what we're going to change right here and now today. So the hidden flaw in goal setting, delayed gratification dominates. Now there's that marshmallow test. I don't know if you ever heard of that, where they gave these kids two marshmallows, and they said, okay, well, I'm sorry, no, they gave the kids one marshmallow. Everybody got one marshmallow, and these were young kids, and said, okay, we're going to come back in 10 minutes, and if you have not eaten that marshmallow, we're going to give you a second marshmallow. And some of the kids just couldn't stand it. It was so delicious. They ate it right away, and they didn't go in. The other ones felt that they could delay the gratification and got a second marshmallow. And then they followed a longitudinal study, followed these kids, and the ones that could delay their gratification became more successful in life. And our daily actions feel like chores. Oh, I gotta work out. Oh, it's time for me to sit down and practice my piano. Oh, I don't want to practice my language. I don't want to sit down and write. Writing is hard and painful. All those kind of things, and make it sound like, feel like a chore. Guess what? We're not going to stick with that, right? Um, and the rewards are pushed into the future. It's like, well, once I learn how to or practice to be a great writer, oh boy, then I'm going to really feel good. Or, well, boy, once I can really play the guitar, then I'm going to reap the rewards of that. Instead of each day having some sort of built-in pleasure element that allows us to think of it not as something that we have to hump through, but that we really enjoy doing. Yeah, and if the process feels miserable, you're not gonna be able to persist in it. So, what the research shows, right? That goal importance doesn't predict success. So you can have the most important goal you think, and you've set that goal and all. it has to be enjoyable immediately. You have to figure out how to engineer the pleasure principle into it, right? So experience matters more than intention. And so, the road of good, the road to hell is paved in good intentions, right? And motivation depends on how the activity feels right now, right? So you have to figure out how to make something feel good so you do it. Pleasure's not the enemy. We think, oh, it's all about no pain, no gain, kind of thing. No pain, no champagne, all those kind of sayings, right? But the enjoyment is what sustains the effort. You know, Pleasure reduces burnout. Short-term satisfaction enables long-term results. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for that compounding kind of thing of where we do something day after day, day in and day out. It starts to build up and it compounds, just like interest compounds on money. And Einstein called, compound interest the eighth wonder of the world. It's really true. Your habits compound and make you immensely better. And that is really, that's the long term goal. But you can't get there unless you have pleasure in the short term, right? Yeah, and the opposite of discipline isn't pleasure. They're not opposites. The opposite of pleasure, you're just going to get exhausted and you won't do it. So intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. This is the key. And these are fancy words, right? But intrinsic means within inside yourself. Extrinsic means getting your motivation from outside, from other people. So we don't want to rely on extrinsic motivation. We want to have the motivation within ourselves. And that's going to be the key. So think about running, right? You could run because you feel good and it feels good to be outside and you're just like, cruising around, looking at things and breathing that air and it's a great day. Or even if it's raining or if it's super hot, you just like that extra effort. It's really something. Or because we're told, oh, it's really good for us and we have to do it. And then we start thinking, well, I have to go and run because that's extrinsic. Intrinsic is like, I just want to go outside. And what's a great way to sort of experience outside? Well, I'll put on my running shoes and just, run through the park or something. And when we do it, and think of it that way, we start to find those pleasure elements. You might see a bird in a tree or whatever it is that gives you this really, lovely feeling. And then the next time it's like, I want to get that feeling again, you know? And so it's the same action, but it's going to be a different outcome because enjoyment is going to lead to consistency. So the surprising finding of a lot of studies is, intrinsic motivation predicts success and extrinsic motivation doesn't. But people misjudge that and think that the extrinsic motivation is going to be the thing that's going to power them, power us doing what we want to do. So we really misunderstand ourselves in that way. So another thing that we do is we optimize for speed. Okay, I want to lose 10 pounds. How can I do that in 30 days? It's like, okay, well, I'm going to really have to suffer. I'm going to have to not eat and I'm going to have to, really exercise hard and be hungry all the time. That probably isn't going to last. And when you're done, even if you've done it, you're probably going to say, okay, now I'm done with that. And you're going to gain the weight back because you're going to go back to your old habits. We tend to revert to the mean, right? Reversion to the mean, to our old way, our old ways. And so, the fastest path you hate is the worst strategy. It just is not going to work. So design your habits for enjoyment. Optimize for sustainability. Let the results compound, right? A slower path you enjoy always wins. So instead of trying to lose 10 pounds in 30 days, maybe you lose 1 pound in 30 days and you do it with just saying, all I'm going to do is cut out my, my piece of cake after lunch or something, that you can live with and manage. And it's just going to make that one little difference to help you get there. And then reward yourself too for those kind of things. And once I get to that weight or something or lose a little bit, I'm going to buy a new, some new clothes just to show off my, for myself and all those kind of things. So combining motivation, here's the key, you start with the external goals, you want what you want to do, and then make the doing enjoyable. And you don't have to love the goal, but love the doing. You have to love the process. You have to love the journey. You know, I find that with writing. You know, if I don't love doing it, and some of the things I make it enjoyable is I'll make a cup of tea. I got a really comfy office space to do it in. All those kind of things really help make that process really enjoyable. And then you start getting the satisfaction of accomplishing something, and that just it's a flywheel effect. You just start doing it more. So, temptation bundling. This is a great way. Pair habits with pleasure. Add an immediate reward. Reduce the reliance on willpower. And smart design beats self control. One of the things I do, I have for exercise. I have a, Peloton bike, a stationary bike, right? And I like to get on that. And I used to, listen to their, coaching sessions on it and all, and that was good. But I kind of got tired of it after a while. And what I did was instead was I canceled that, and I go on there, and believe it or not, I'll say that's my scrolling time, you know. So whenever I'm getting to the point where I'm kind of feeling like I need a break, and I just want to scroll YouTube or look at some Facebook reels or whatever kind of thing, or look at the news, scroll the news, my news feed. Um, Instead of doing it and just sitting on the couch, I say, nope, that's what I'm going to do on the bike. And so I get on the bike, and then I can do my scrolling. And so I enjoy that part of it. And it makes the bike riding, effortless. And the time passes, and I get to do my scrolling. and, but I'm also, bundling it with the exercise, and it really works for me. So think about things in that way. I try to engineer stuff in that way for myself, because we have to get over the pain in our mind of doing these kind of things. So the core insight, lasting change requires immediate reward. Enjoyment sustains momentum. Process all the time. If it doesn't feel good, it won't last. So if you've made a New Year's resolution, you're making one, make sure you take the time to really get that right. And yeah, so hello there, and I'm glad that you're all here. I just wanted to check the comments, and it's such a pleasure, and we'll just keep moving along here. So reflect on that for yourself. Which goals feel heavy, which how can you redesign it? And that's the fun too, is how do we design these things to make them good for myself? It's almost like a meta practice, right? You're treating yourself like a project, and instead of like, powering through things and trying to suffer and tough it out, you say, how can I make this easier for myself? Instead, maybe you're thinking, I need to get up at 5 a.m. every day and then go out for a run. And that's what I'm going to do. And it's dark and it's cold. Excuse me. And you may not want to do it at the time. Well, what if you say, you know what, instead of that, I'm going to do it at lunchtime or something like that, where it's nice and warm. I've had some time during the day to get ready, and then it doesn't feel like such an effort. Something like that. There's all these different ways you can look at things, and it's small changes. Like we said, it's the inflection point. So it's alignment over discipline, right? We've talked about that. Align those goals, and it'll feel effortless. So here's a three-part goal system, right? So part of it is everything has two creations, right? One in your mind. Everything starts as in the imagination. It's a product of mind. So anything you have, it's an idea, to better your business or to better yourself, whatever it is, starts out in the mind, and then you have to take that idea and figure out, how do I execute that and make it tangible, make it into something that it is, bring it into the real world. And that's really where the magic happens, right? Actually bringing it into the world. So we want emotional fuel. That's what the having a big audacious dream gives us emotional fuel. And then the consistent small steps, the action, that's really key. So here's a mini visualization exercise, and take your time and think about this. But write three things your future self has already achieved. So these are now that's your future self. So it's like, okay, think, and here's an interesting point on all this. We tend to overestimate and then get frustrated. We overestimate what we can achieve in a year. We think that's a long period of time, right? In a year, I want to do X. And we tend to really underestimate what we can achieve in a decade. And if we start to think in a decade, that allows us to have the time to really, really achieve what we want to do. I learned, I wanted to play jazz piano. I wanted to learn that. I didn't start until I was in my, late 30s. After I thought about it, I took lessons when I was in college and, all these kind of things, but I kept trying and not trying. And I just didn't have the focus to sit down and actually do it. But by that time, I had done enough things. It's like, you know what? I know how to do this. I know how to hack myself to find out how I learn and what I learn. So I started to use, all kinds of different materials, different CDs, different books, different videos, lessons from lots of different people, and really figured out what are the different ways that I learn best. And it was really interesting. And I started, but it took me a decade. It took me 10 years, really. And at the beginning, that's what people said. And I was like, hopefully I can do it faster. I don't want to work 10 years. I really want to do it now. But honestly, it took me that long. But I made it enjoyable. And so I actually stuck with it that long. And I have to tell you, the first time I sat down and played with other musicians and, just call tunes and just jump in, and there we went. It was nothing could beat that. What a feeling. Um, so that's the kind of stuff that you want, so say, what are three things that you want to do that your future self that you've already achieved, and look out about a decade, look out 2 decades and say, wow, now I know how to speak, Japanese, or I've learned how to do X, Y, or Z, whatever it is, the kind of accomplishments that we really want to do that'll make us, feel well-rounded. And again, there's extrinsic, rewards in those kind of things, but there's also the intrinsic rewards of actually being able to have those faculties and to accomplish things. Just wonderful. And once you do it once, you start to learn the process, and you can do it over and over again in other fields. And I'm talking from experience. So why does this, also think, what's your why? There's a great book by Simon Sinek, right? I forget what it's, Start With Why. And it's all about, that's the center, and then everything radiates out from there. Why do you want to do this? And whether it's in business or whether it's in your personal life. And why does this goal matter? Why now? And who benefits when you grow? Well, you certainly do. And everyone around you, all your loved ones and things do, because you become a better person. You become more happy. You become more engaged. You become more enthusiastic because you're actually making progress and you're doing things. Small steps, compound. Action creates identity, right? Momentum beats intensity. Consistency is greater than perfection. Perfection is the enemy of good enough. That's what Voltaire said, and I always think about that. I just saw this thing the other day. It was the Beatles, and think of how incredible their songs are and all, and the amount of output they did, how prolific they were. And I think it was, somebody said that, to John Lennon, I think, and well, it isn't perfect. Maybe it's the producer, George Martin or something. And he said, I don't care. We're done. Same thing with Bob Dylan. He always likes to make the first take of a song. That's the one we're going with. There may be, somebody might have hit a wrong note or didn't start off right or whatever. Everybody thought it was the rehearsing the track, and he said, okay, we're done with that. We're moving on to the next one. And those tracks are absolutely magnificent, and they have that energy to them, because he didn't stop and just keep going over and trying to polish it and perfect it and getting caught. The Romans used to call that, if it has the whiff of the midnight oil, if something, writing or something, felt too polished or too well thought out, it wasn't authentic and immediate enough. So that's perfection, and trying to be perfection is a form of procrastination, right? No, it's not ready yet. I can't release this into the world because it's not perfect. You're procrastinating, and real professionals launch. They ship product, even if it's not perfect. You know, um, the fellow who founded LinkedIn. I'll think of his name in a minute, but he said, if you're not embarrassed by your first iteration of your product, you waited too long to ship. And I think Reed Hoffman, and I think that's true. We look back and get something out there and then see how people respond. The old adage, ready, fire, aim, can be inverted a bit, and it's ready, ready, aim, fire, right? Can be inverted to ready, fire, aim. You see, I have that so ingrained in me. That's what I said first. Get ready, and then fire. Launch, ship something, send it out there, and then get feedback and iterate and polish things based on the feedback. And that's the aiming part. So you can ready, fire, aim is a really good thing to think of. I think for me, it's been great. So you want to have identity-based goals. Your beliefs make your actions, make your habits, and then habits make a destiny. That's really the way it goes. You have to change your beliefs. The first thing, the first part. And removing what blocks you. That's really a key. We talked about getting rid of bad habits. We always think we have to add something, right? What's the good habit that I can add on top of this stuff? Well, first think about what habits you have that I don't know if you want to call them bad habits, but habits that aren't serving you anymore. And they may be ones like smoking, or eating poor foods, or just any kind of TV, all those kind of things we talked about. Subtraction is greater than addition. Antoine Saint-Exupéry, he wrote The Little Prince, and he was a brilliant guy. But he said, perfection is achieved not when there's nothing more to add, but when there's nothing more to take away. And I always think about that. It's a thing called the via negativa, and I've written about that a bunch in my Substack and in my books and things. The via negativa, where it's the road of taking things around, removing things until you get really down to the things you want to be. So think about that. Remove one friction creating habit that you have. And maybe that's staying up too late, not getting proper sleep. It could be all kinds of things. And then, check out my Substack. I have a bunch of things like that on there. And energy increases when clutter decreases. Marie Kondo, the famous, decluttering expert. If your desk is all messy, or your room or your house is all messy, that really bears on your mind and your ability to think clearly. So, um, accepting what you're not, and letting go of these things. That's it may be also people in your life, that are holding you back. There's that old thing about when you have a bunch of crabs in a bucket. If one crab starts to crawl up the wall and start trying to escape, the other crabs will grab it and drag it back down. And so you find out what kind of toxic people are around you that really want to keep you down. And you're going to have to make a decision, even though you love them or you have fun with them, that you may have to, their journey is different than your journey. And here's another great thing that letting go. There's this is from Robert Persing, I think so, the guy who wrote Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, another great book, and a cool title, right? And in there he talks about this, in the Philippines, this monkey trap where they have this like some sort of a barrel or something with a hole in it. And inside that barrel is a coconut. And the monkey can put its fist through the hole and grab that coconut. But then when it tries to get back out, the hole is only big enough for without the holding the coconut. And the monkey will not let go of that coconut and is trapped until somebody comes and captures it. And you don't have to have like, isn't it a crazy trap? And think about what a metaphor that is for lots of things in our lives. The things that we're unwilling to let go of, that aren't serving us, that are keeping us trapped. And if the monkey would just let go of that coconut and say, this coconut's not for me, and then pull its talons out, it could be free, but it's not willing to do that. And so we have to be willing to be a smarter monkey and let go of the things that are holding us back and identifying them, right? So here's another chat prompt, something for you to talk about, think about, one goal that you will commit to this year, just one. There's a great thing that Warren Buffett said that um, write down 25 things you want to do, 25 goals. Okay, now put them into prioritize them. From the one you really want to do all the way down to number 25. Now you have the top five, and then he said, eliminate all the others. The other ones, you're just not going to get to them. And then you can focus on those top five. And that is discipline, right? That's the kind we want to do everything. And, there's a great quote too, we can do anything we want. We can do anything we want, but we can't do everything we want. So we have to make some decisions. We have to prioritize. And, I think that Warren Buffett thing is a great way to think about that. Here's another one that's really good. What's one thing you will stop doing this year? This is a harder one, right? It's hard to make those decisions to stop doing something that we've just become accustomed to, and but isn't serving us. So here's a story from my life, and I'll just leave this up here, and you can read it, but I'm not gonna go through and read it basically. Um, but it's all about what we've been talking about, and that's why I even think in these terms, because it's from my personal experience. It's really the way that I have thought about and done things and tried to eliminate the things that I didn't want in my life, and focus on the things that I do. And I can tell you now, I feel pretty good about where I'm at and what I've achieved, what I've accomplished just in lifestyle design, right? These are the things I want in my life. These are the things I don't, and I've been able to do them. So here's another story. This is kind of interesting. The obstacle is the way. We think that obstacles are the problem, but the Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, who was a Stoic, who said a good life can be led even in a palace. you know, really a wise guy. Marcus Aurelius' Meditations are a great book to read. We should all read that. We should all read it once a year, really. Um, but there are opportunities. Um, so this is a story about a queen worried that her people were being complacent. So she put a giant rock boulder in the middle of the road, and most travelers saw that and turned back, or stuff like that, and complained. One man stopped, saw the problem, figured out how to fix it, and under the when he moved the boulder, under it was a bag of gold, and that was his reward for sticking with the problem. And any problem, as we start, the obstacles, as we start to figure out solutions, that's where we really learn. Now, the art is, within entrepreneurship, there's a famous, pathway decision making thing to either pivot or persevere, right? There's all these stories about somebody had, came on some obstacles and they persevered and they kept after it, struggled and forever, and then they broke through and everything was great. But we don't hear about the ones where they persevered and then it didn't work. And we have to know when to pivot, to change course, and when to persevere through something. Um, and that's the art. It's like, am I really just banging my head against the wall? This is an intractable kind of thing, and I need to pivot to something else. Or can I see there are feasible incremental ways that I can work on this to actually erode the problem and get to where I want to go, and all the learning that's going to take place through that, right? So here's the simple formula for 2026 now, right? Clarity plus your why, plus action, plus subtraction, plus momentum. That's what we've been talking about. So, how do you maintain momentum? Well, here's a bunch of different ways to do it, right? Um, so, I want to talk about a couple of things. The MBA ASA community, that's where we all get together and help each other and go through everything. In the community are all my courses that I have on Udemy and on my website and everything else, plus a whole bunch more material. All my books are in there. And it's a way, what the reason I developed it is because, you know, I didn't want it to be a one-way conversation where there's videos and books and I'm speaking to you and there's no way to speak back. So this, you have peer-to-peer interaction with all people that have the same kind of goals and aspirations from all over the world. And also, I do a lot of you know uh, sessions in there and things where we really start to develop skills and understand the concepts of business and personal development. And so it's just a great thing. And you can just join it. You know, it's mba.mn.co, and go in there. Um, and we do, yeah, weekly coaching and discussions, accountability, all the courses and tools, books, everything's in there. And the supportive community. I think that's actually really the key, that's where we gain, we feel like we're not alone in the world. We feel we're not alone with our aspirations and things. So that's what I think is the greatest thing about it. And if you can think better, decide faster, and execute confidently, you're going to get to your goals faster. And if you can build momentum and confidence, these are the kind of things that a community can really give you. And it's really just great to have other people that are around that you can that we can work with. So here it is. Here's the www.mba-asap.mn.co. A lot of you have taken my course too on the website, mba-asap.com, my finance, my micro MBA, the numbers side of business and all. And then come into the community after that with that type of knowledge set, which takes about 6 weeks or so to do. That's a great path to go to. So, um, I'm going to leave it there basically. If you have any questions that you'd like to have cleared. Okay, here's some here. Can you give tips on ways to sharpen my memory for better concentration? Well, absolutely. Some things, they're the simple things though. It's not like you take some fancy neurotropic drug or something like that. Get enough sleep. Get 8 hours of sleep at night. Go to sleep early. Get up early, kind of things. Don't again, alcohol and marijuana, pot, pot and booze will really mess with your concentration. Give those kind of things up and you'll really concentrate better. Meditation. I meditate for half an hour every day. And that time gives me clarity and even quiets me so that I can actually feel in my life, get the noise down enough so I can hear myself and hear what my little voice in my head's trying to tell me to do. And let's see, does mass improvement result in sustainability through goal setting? Yeah, improvement results. If you improve, sustainable. Goal setting's the first part, right? And then you have to implement those goals and make them into habits and systems and processes that get you to the goal. That's the sustainability part. And does people's judgment matter in our self-oriented decisions, or should we represent ourselves? Well, there you go. That's a great question too, and that's that extrinsic versus intrinsic type of thing. I think that what we should do, I mean, it's great to take advice from people, and people sometimes have good advice. A lot of times, what people are given as advice, though, is not advice to us as much as advice to their former self. They think, oh, do it this way because they felt like they made a mistake. So you have to be careful taking advice, but also you don't want to dismiss advice out of hand and try to find where the nuggets of truth are there in there for yourself. But really, what we need to do is follow our own path. That's where we feel comfortable. And that's where our truth lies. We reveal ourselves to ourselves by following our own paths. And that's really where we're going to feel the most motivated. So I think that we should, be self-oriented in our decisions, and be respectful of people, but not think that, oh, because they want me to do it, I have to do it. And then, you start to feel you start to not like the fact that you're being imposed upon in that way, so you don't do it as well. If it's something that's really coming from your heart that you really want to do, is something that you've always wanted to do, um, that's what we should follow. Yeah. So don't listen to the outside noise. Don't listen to you know, there's a lot of marketing. There's so many distractions. You think about social media and marketing, and things where they're trying to create within us these desires, and it's like, oh, I have to get that car. Only if I drank that beer, then I'd be the perfect person. Or if only I had that new watch, oh, that would really, make me, better, and things like that. It's not about extrinsic material things. It's like, what do I want to do that satisfies my soul? What do I want to do that really is best for me? So, and meditation is a great way, one, to get clarity, but also to be able to sit quietly and listen to that voice within you about, what do I really want to do? And that's why writing down goals and things is a great thing, because it helps you clarify for yourself the best things you want to do. What do you really want out of life? So I love these, and I really really appreciate the questions. I appreciate your time so much, um, and for coming here and being with me. So this is the beginning of the year. It's a great time. I mean, the beginning of the year is sort of an artificial date, right? It's like, it's something we make up, but it's a good as any starting point to say, here's what I'm going to get rid of. Here's what I'm going to start doing, and let's see how we do. And I wish you all the best of luck, and thank you so much for coming and stuff. And think about joining the MBASA community. I'd love to see you in there. Some of you are in there already, and so I'm preaching to the choir there. But others, think about joining up. It's a wonderful thing. So thanks so much. Here's the couple of places to connect. You can connect on my website, mba-asap.com, and at the community, mba-asap.mn.co. So thanks so much. And I look forward to seeing you in the future. This is just the beginning, right? This is just the beginning for us. Take care.